The two revenue bills proposed by the Finance Ministry will be up for consideration in Parliament tomorrow. These include the 20% excise tax on water and other sweetened beverages, as well as the 5% tax on profit before tax. These are new policy measures introduced by the Finance Ministry as part of efforts to boost revenue generation. Players in the food and beverages industry have warned of massive job losses if Parliament goes ahead to approve government's new tax measures. The two revenue bills proposed by the Finance Ministry will be up for consideration in Parliament tomorrow. These are the 20% excise tax on water and other sweetened beverages, as well as the 5% tax on profit before tax. Member of the Food and Beverages Association, John Awuni, says Parliament must reject the new revenue measures.
It is in the interest of government. It is in the interest of the executive. It is in the interest of Parliament not to approve these bills. I can assure you that government will not meet its targets, its revenue targets from the passage of these bills.
Some public sector labour unions have also kicked against the new tax bill before Parliament, even before they are considered by members of the House. President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Enje Kabonu, explains how the income tax amendment bill, if passed, would make public sector workers worse off.
My income should have been intact so that you tax me on my consumption. But in our country, you are taxing me on consumption, at the same time taxing me on income. And the income tax as we speak is 15% or more. So one wonders what bill government is sent to Parliament.
The Fair Wages and Salaries Commission has warned persons who have profited from payroll fraud to refund the money or be prepared to face the law. The Commission has served notice to embark on a nationwide exercise to clean up the public sector payroll, but some public sector labour unions insist it has no such mandate.
Not quite long, audit service was doing payroll audit. State was doing payroll audit. We go to Ministry of Finance, payroll audit. But so far, who has been prosecuted? That's it. I'm a check a strategy and you it's an insult to our intelligence. This is job for the boys.
Flag-bearer hopeful of the National Democratic Congress, Kojo Bonsu, says he will rebrand the party to make it more attractive, particularly to the youth he voted for to lead the party into the 2024 general elections. He spoke to the media after he filed his nomination at the party head office in Accra.
We have about 440 delegates who don't even do anything about the party. It's like on top. But I am going from bottom up approach so that all the branches will be involved in all that we do.
Well, welcome back. Now, you can find more on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. The Electricity Company of Ghana is on a debt collection journey. They say some 5.7 billion cedis is owed them. And this, we're talking about people, the debtors in both public and private sector. But questions have been raised as to why the debt have to increase over time before they set aside a number of days to go and take the money. The managing director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Samuel Dupik Mahama, will be speaking and responding to those concerns tonight. And also for those of you out there, the vendors, the prepaid meter vendors who have raised concerns about the increase in the threshold, how much you have to pay to purchase or be registered as a vendor from 5,000 cedis, it's been increased to 20,000 cedis. You've raised questions about the economic situation and we are in now and why the ECG should be increasing this amount that much by about 150%. We'll get answers for you tonight. But these are the institutions. In fact, there's an updated list. Yesterday we put out some updated list of some of the institutions that owe ECG. And there's been some updates as well. Some of them have gone to pay some of the money. University of Ghana, as far as we know, is still 31 million cedis. UPS is still that much. Fabri Metal Ghana Limited, yesterday we put out 27 million. Well, there's an update. It's about 28 million now. KFC, Volta and OT, we understand this data actually came through from the Volta and OT region ECG. That's the exercise they are on there. Remember, this is an exercise that they are on in every region that ECG supplies power to. KFC, 68,000. Cape Coast Stadium, yesterday it wasn't part. Now we know, 513,000. This is legacy debt that has been there for so long. So the Cape Coast Stadium owes that much. Then we have Parliament, how much they paid. Ghana Airports Company Limited, they paid some. GBC is there. B5 Plus, today the update is that they've paid 20 million out of the 42 million they owe ECG. So that's the updates that we have. They're seeking to raise some 5.7, in fact, collect 5.7 billion that is owed them. I'll get into a lot more of it. The other issue, as a matter of fact, apart from the MD of the ECG speaking to us in studio tonight, Daniel Yao Demelovo, the former Auditor General of the Republic of Ghana, would also be joining us on Ghana Tonight. The issue of financing of political parties comes up every now and then. John Mahama set the stage earlier today with a conversation on it. He's put together his own attempt to get citizens to contribute to his campaign. But how about the Electoral Commission as well? What are they supposed to do in ensuring that we, you and I, who are stakeholders in this democracy, also get to know the people who are financing political party activities in this country? Because call them political entrepreneurs who invest in political parties so that when they win power, they get the contracts and all of that, riddled with corruption. This is what the law actually says when it comes to political party finance and the declaration of assets and expenditure by political parties. This is in the Political Parties Act. The political party shall, no other alternative, within 90 days after the issue to it of a final certificate of registration under Section 11 or a longer period allowed by the Electoral Commission, submit to the Electoral Commission a written declaration giving details of its assets and expenditure, including contributions or donations in cash or in kind made to the initial assets of the party by its founding members. Has the Electoral Commission lived up to expectations of this? So do they have data? And so we all get to know how political parties are funded in this country. Well, these are questions we're asking tonight of the former Auditor General. Daniel Yao Demelovo is our guest later on the show on Ghana Tonight. Remember, we had a report that some Galamsey operators and others are funding political parties in this country. Stay with me. We'll be back shortly after this quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. We are live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook. Now, at the heart of John Mahama's speech earlier today was the emphasis on the need for the laws on political parties financing or funding to be considered, or another second look again be taken to it on the issue of transparency. I'll take a listen to him.
Some experts have made some interesting suggestions that are worth considering in our debate on this, and I'm going to refer to a resource paper. In a recent paper authored by the Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honourable Alban S.K. Bagbin and Albert Ahinkan, titled Political Party Financing and Reporting in Ghana, Practitioner's Perspectives, the authors recommended setting up a regulated fund, such as a common fund or a matching fund. This work by Bagbin and Ahinkan, together with the CDD reports and several others, are important resource documents for reform on campaign financing and could be a starting resource for our discussion on these issues. They opine that these must be well structured to serve as an incentive for political parties to source private sector funding from legitimate sources. And the idea of matching funds is interesting because it helps to promote small donations to political parties. And so if, for instance, a donor gave 50 Ghana cedis, then the matching fund could be established as 100% of the 50 Ghana cedis. And so the matching fund will give 100 in addition to the 50. And so the political party gets 150 from a 50 CD donation. And so these are all things that we can consider. Our debate should certainly evaluate each of these proposals and build consensus on the way forward. In sum, the jury is still out there whether there must be some public support for political party funding in Ghana and how to broaden the funding mix for these parties. We must therefore engage on the way forward in the interest of our democracy. And it's not only campaign financing that must attract our interest. We must be bold in reviewing the entire framework of our democratic experiment, identifying reform gaps in the legal and institutional frameworks, and pushing for reforms, whether in the Constitution, Acts of Parliament, or other legal frameworks that are holding back our progress. We must do so for most of our state institutions and act to mend the growing breach between society and Ghana's political system. We must also intensify stakeholder efforts and engagement on the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, NACAP. It is sad observing Ghana's performance on the Transparency International Corruption Perspective.
And that's the former President John Mahama earlier, not too long ago. You watch it live here on TV3. But he raises fundamental questions about this issue of the funding of political parties. Daniel Yao Demelovo is former Auditor General of the Republic of Ghana. He's joining us. Thank you so much for your time this evening. And this issue of political party financing, or as to whether the state should finance political party activities, comes up every now and then. But for you, having occupied the position of Auditor General, how you've seen things play out about financing of the issues in this country, what should be the major consideration if the state should consider financing political parties with our meager resources?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Good evening to your viewers and listeners. I must say that first and foremost, the activities that the politicians or aspirants of public office, be it presidential or parliamentary, are going to engage in is a public service. So in principle, public activities or public service activities must be funded from the public fund, just as we do not expect them to use public funds to fund their personal activities. So that is the principle. However, the use of public funds must be regulated carefully by law. And currently, as we speak, I hope you and I will know that the regulatory framework for this is not very clear. The laws that are on the ground as to transparency and accountability for party funding has not been respected or obeyed over the years. So we may have to ensure we have the right legal framework before we put our public resources there. Otherwise, we are going to open up a waste pipe. Thank you.
I see. But as you indicated, I mean, the public office holder is voted or appointed to render public service. And I got that right. But the evidence that we've seen over the period is a public office holder, or whoever is voted by, in most cases, amass wealth at the expense of the people. I mean, you would understand why the public will question why we should fund political parties, campaigns, or activities when they come into power, they still make money at our expense.
So like I said earlier on, in principle, they are rendering public service, and public service must be rendered at the expense of public funds. We must use public funds to fund public services. But then I agree to say also that the truth is that the corruption is not just due to the fact that they funded their coming into office. Otherwise, then they were very expensive, excessively expensive. The amount of monies that are stolen from the public funds over the years cannot be justified by only the fact that they were funded by a private person, or they borrowed money, or they used their own sources to fund their activities. So, right, we need to limit the leakage or the waste of public resources. And party funding becomes a very important issue because I think that anyone who invests so much money into coming into office may like to recoup it, rightly or wrongly. And if especially the person borrowed the money, then it must be refunded to wherever it was borrowed. But then what we need to know or to do is to first put a limit on how much one can spend on party funding. So there are some expenditures that we all see they are extravagant or unnecessary, but then they go on. And if we should be mindful of that, we should also demand transparency and accountability. I think the law requires that the political parties should submit audited financial statements, and where they got their monies from and etc. should all be disclosed to the people. But we don't usually get this from them. And so it becomes very difficult to say that let's put in additional public funds into party funding.
And that's actually where
financing.
Indeed, that's where the public concern is. And we've seen a lot more of the smaller political parties, I mean, for the lack of better expression, have a louder voice in terms of calling for the state funding, because the evidence is there. They don't have so much money as compared to the NPP and the NDC. Now, why is that the case?
Yes, I hold the same opinion that they seem to be attractive because in Ghana, one can reasonably guess that when we go into the 2024 election, it's either in the NDC or NPP, it's one of the two who is going to make it. And for that matter, those who like to fund political activities will push their monies there. So I think they have access to a lot of resources, so they are not too worried about political party funding. But then the smaller ones who are not as attractive as the big two, if I can call them, they will continuously cry. And I agree with them because it is not a service for themselves. It is a public service. And for that matter, they will need help. The problem is how that help can be given out. Currently, we have very limited fiscal space. We have a lot of things that we need to do with public funds, which are not being done. And if we open that channel also now and say, let's put in funding for political activities, the question one would like to ask, how much are we talking about? Remember the number of MPs we have. If you have about 275 MPs and multiply that by the number of people who will be competing for it, are we going to have enough money for all that? And presidential candidates. And even before we get to presidential candidates, etc., where will we start the funding from? Will it be at the party level when delegates are going to elect the MP who should the aspiring MP and the aspiring president, or it is after the parties have done their election? It is going to be a very expensive and a very tall order. Whereas in principle, I agree that it can be funded. In practice, it is always going to be a waste pipe if we don't take time.
The law requires, and I put that law earlier on the screen, and I'm going to have just for the benefit of our viewers. It says a political party shall, and this is the Political Parties Act, Section 13, within 90 days after the issue to it of a final certificate of registration, essentially you're supposed to file or give details of the assets and expenditure, including contributions and donations in cash. All this data is supposed to be given to the Electoral Commission. If the parties fail at it, we've seen the Electoral Commission also consistently being inefficient or ineffective in demanding this information from the political parties. How has that contributed to this situation that we're faced with now?
I find it very ridiculous or unacceptable, to be honest with you, that the law makes a specific request of the Electoral Commission and they decide to ignore it. And nobody has taken on EC. I think someone has to take on EC to ensure that they do their work, because the law says, let us know how you got your money and how you spent it. That will have given all of us a good idea how much it costs. And then when someone comes and say, I am clean, we can determine whether he is actually clean or he is not clean. So I think that EC needs to wake up and do the needful to ensure that all these political parties, they file their audited financial statements.
I see.
Otherwise, they are not allowed to contest.
It's a critical point that you made, but how dangerous can it get? I mean, if we have faceless people who financing political party activities here because the Electoral Commission has failed at demanding or ensuring that political parties file the information on the sources of donations in cash or kind to them.
Look, it can be as dangerous as terrorist group funding the political parties. It can be anybody at all. That's why we need transparency. That's why we need accountability. If we don't know who is funding you, for all you know, your funding is coming from a source where if we all knew, we would have said, no, don't go there. We cannot take that. Fortunately, Ghana doesn't have an enemy country, but a country which will definitely or is definitely not seeking the good of the country, maybe of Ghana, maybe the one funding a political party. That can be very dangerous. Or someone who is funding the country for a very bad reason, which we cannot accept. So we must know it. There are a lot of movements in this world who have a lot of money and they would like to influence imposing their decisions, what they call their values on society. So we need to know that, especially when we realize that a political office holder is not able to address some issues which are even contrary to the laws or the aspirations and values of our country. It can be part of it. So it's a very dangerous thing to do, to keep the source of funding unknown to the people. We must have to know this.
I see, but we've seen what, in this case, earlier today, John Mahama has done in launching a platform where you have encouraging members of the general public to contribute to his campaign as well. If there has to be a consideration for some sort of public funding, in what form should that come?
Well, if there should be any agreement that we should fund political activities or party activities, and then first and foremost, the political parties must show faith with the law and be transparent and be accountable. Apart from that, I think we need to put mechanisms in place to ensure that there will be a level playing field so that we don't fund parties and still introduce disadvantage to some of the parties. So that I think whatever monies that we would like to put into party funding should, in case we even agree to do that, should go to a neutral authority such as an NCCE, National Commission for Civic Education, who can create a common platform on radio, on TV for the various political parties to come and campaign. So they are given equal opportunity. In fact, they can even raise platforms, organize assemblies or town hall meetings whereby the various aspirants come and share their ideas. They can print their billboards for them. In fact, that is one of the things I wish that NCCE takes it over from the individual, so that in each town or village, there's a particular dedicated place where those posters can be, so that they stop littering our streets everywhere, our buildings, etc., with their posters. I don't think that thing is civilized. You go to some countries. I remember I was in the Netherlands when they were going to hold their election, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. It was about a week to the election. There was not one poster you can find anywhere. You didn't see the type of filth or the debt we create in the name of political activities. So we should be able to do something like that. So NCC can just get an open place, a public place, and put all your posters over there and say, don't post anything anywhere else. If we find you to have posted each poster that we find you so much. Very soon, our electricity poles, our bridges, and etc. are all going to be littered with those campaign things. I don't think we should do that. So I think that if we should be considering ever funding political parties, giving the money to them directly, I think should not be the first option. The first option is to look at activities that are common to all of them and get a neutral person, such as the NCCE, to say provide a common platform for them, so that even those who could not afford airtime or TV time,
Right.
they can also have it, and at least we can hear their voices.
Daniel Yao Demilevo, appreciate your time. Thank you so much here, joining us here on Ghana Tonight, and on this issue of funding of political parties, crucial one indeed. This is Ghana Tonight. Now, take a look at this.
I have no water. I swear before, the whole day I have not passed. And tomorrow I'll be going to work. No water. So how will I be happy as a worker?
Welcome back from that break. This is Ghana Tonight, and as I showed you before the break, the number of institutions, lots of them who are owing ECG millions of cedis. And it's been like this over the last many months gone by. The company they've also been on this disconnection spree and debt collection exercise. The question of sustainability runs through the concerns that many of you have raised about this exercise the Electricity Company of Ghana is on. The managing director of ECG is with us in studio, Samuel Dubik Mahama. Thank you so much, Samuel, for joining us on Ghana Tonight.
Thank you and good evening.
So how has this exercise been over the last 48 hours? You go around disconnecting people and collecting your money.
It has been a very good exercise so far. It's been a very revealing. I'd like to take this opportunity to say a big thank you to all our customers, a big thank you to all the good people of Ghana and all those who we've encountered. The exercise has been very peaceful, very revealing, and it's very energizing, and we just can't help but say a big thank you to you all. To those of you we haven't visited yet, we are on our way. We should be there soon.
You are going to visit them to disconnect them or collect your money?
One comes before the other, not so. So we are there to collect. And then afterwards, whatever needs to happen should happen. Let's not forget, it's because there's not been payment. That is why we are where we are. So we cannot come to you and leave with zero. And you cannot also say that you haven't received a bill and that's why you've not paid. You have received a bill before.
There are some people who have those concerns that they've not received the bill. Some of them have been asking for the bill. It doesn't come.
You know what your last bill was. You are advised to keep paying that same amount until finally your meter is read and the reconciliation is done. It's in your interest to continue paying that same amount. Because when you're paying that same amount, you are beating down your entire, exposure. Because right now that you haven't paid for how long, when we get there and the amount is so huge, what are your expectations? Are you expecting us to forgive the debt?
I see.
We cannot forgive the debt.
Why does it take so long for you to give people meters so that they can be hooked on and you can track their consumption?
The conversation is a bit deeper than that. We have 50% of our customers as prepaid and the other 50% as postpaid. Do not forget, you have a prepaid meter. Mm-hmm. So based on the prepaid, you prepay before you consume. So what's the excuse of the other person who, because they have a postpaid meter and they haven't received a bill, that is the fundamental reason why they are not paying their bills? You should be paying something on account. It's in your own interest until finally your meter is read. We have about 2.5 million postpaid meters and we have only 800 meter readers. It's a policy shift that we need to fix because we know it's not sustainable. We know we have our own inefficiencies. Yes, we know we are partly to be blamed, but it's a business. You know you have consumed. So why are you not paying? You're waiting for us to knock on your door? Well, we are here. So what do we do and where do we go from here? Because we cannot allow you to keep consuming when you're not paying.
So what's the plan to convert the 50% of the electricity customers who are on postpaid to prepaid? So that, yes,
when government came up with that policy of going prepaid, government was hoping to have some huge cash flow to give to the company to just replace everybody's meters. But that didn't happen. This process has to go through a very gradual one to get to that point. So the whole conversation and the whole process has to be managed. How do we manage the process? That's the conversation. Mm-hmm. Now, we are owed out there 5.7 billion.
5.7 billion.
Ghana cedis.
That's the total debt owed ECG.
Out there, yeah. Now, we have to collect these monies. If we even want to buy meters for everybody, where will we buy it from? It's from all of these monies. But these are monies that people have consumed and are waiting that because they haven't received a bill. Then if you haven't received a bill, the day we give you a bill, you have to pay up. Because if that's your excuse that you've not received a bill, the moment you get a bill, you have to pay up. But then they will be expecting to say that because I didn't receive a bill and I haven't paid anything on account, you have to give me a payment plan. Well, the ACG policy says you have to pay 50% up front before we talk about a payment plan.
So this 5.7 billion total debt owed ECG, how much of it is held by state agencies or public institutions, and I mean state-owned enterprises, for instance?
Because I knew we would get to this point, it was a strategic approach. I can say on authority that the state-owned agencies, what their share of this is not even up to 10%.
It's not up to 10%.
It's not up to 10%. And everybody involved right now is even actually on a payment plan. So we are very far advanced on that point.
I see. So you, over the last 48 hours, what? You show up, and this is happening in all 16 regions.
Oh,
so
no, that is not 16. ECG gives power, distributes power on the southern sector of Ghana. ECG's boundary ends before Sunyani.
Okay, so then you have NEDCO and others
taking over from there, yeah.
So how many regions this happening?
We talk about southern Ghana. We start from Ashanti, Eastern, Western, Central, Greater Accra, Volta. Yeah, basically.
Give me an idea of how much you've been able to collect over the last 48 hours.
Last 48 hours, I don't have the exact figures, but I can say on a whole that each day we've seen close to around 40 to 50 million Ghana cedis.
40 to 50 million cedis every day?
Yeah, for the past 2 days. But we're expecting it to grow, and we're expecting it to go up because we haven't had the opportunity to interface with Industry Ghana. Industry Ghana holds a chunk of this bill that we are talking about. These are companies that we classify them as SLTs, Special Load Tariff Customers. They contribute quite a chunk of ECG's revenue. Their line item on their budget is electricity because they are in manufacturing and all of that, but yet they are not paying. So quite a chunk of this number is within that interface, and we intend to collect. We've started interfacing with them in the industrial areas. So we are expecting that the revenue will start growing because with every exercise, there's a steady progression as you move on. So
I spoke to Ben Boachi of ASEP, and he raised concerns that, and you, this SLT classification that you put out there, and you agree that they give you a chunk of the revenue. Disconnecting them because they owe would also lead to loss of revenue for as long as they are off the
why would it lead to loss of revenue? The funny thing is that whenever they are disconnected, they find money to buy diesel. They are okay paying diesel, buying diesel to run their generating plants. The cost of diesel is more than what the tariff has awarded all of us for electricity, yet you are not paying. It's time we ask for people to do the right thing and not look for reasons to help them. You are on prepaid. You have been prepaying what you're consuming. Are they better than you?
So why do you wait for the debt to pile up? I mean, into millions. Then you organize this debt collection exercise for a month and go and collect the money, when you can actually track how much the debt is piling up over time.
So this is a business where you are hoping people do the right thing. These SLT customers are on what we call the AMR system. We are able to read their meters remotely. They know they have people in their offices that do reconciliations with us. They know how much they have to pay. We know how much they have to pay. So now the question you need to ask yourself is, they have received their bills. Why haven't they paid? But you can't say because you don't have a bill. And now in the case of the SLTs, we both know what your meters are reading. So your bills have been sent out to you. What's your excuse? You have a bill of 1 million cedis, then you pay 200,000. You have a bill of 5 million cedis, then you pay just 1 million cedis, hoping that, yeah, you've done. No.
So
you used it for production.
To the extent that when you show up, they pay 20%, 10%, 15% of the debt they owe you. What is a challenge in making this exercise a monthly one, so that you don't wait and then 1 month you put out and then you show
brother,
up?
In all honesty, that is what the company's policy is going to be moving forward, because we've realized that when we show up, we get what is due us. Because we are not showing up, that is why. So the board is looking at the policy framework after this exercise to sustain it for one week each month, moving forward.
So every month you show up?
We have to, because clearly now it has showed us that, look, the money out there belongs to you. The money out there belongs to the good people of Ghana. people have consumed. We owe IPPs. We owe power generation companies. We owe Gridco. We owe suppliers. We owe contractors. We don't have an excuse anymore. 5.7 billion is almost 500 million US dollars in the system, and we are not collecting. So anybody who owes should know that right now the conversation has changed.
So within this 1 month period, this 5.7 billion owed you, how much do you intend to collect?
100%. 100%.
And this debt has been piling up for God knows how long.
It has been piling up. Is it our fault alone? It's a shared responsibility. When you run out of minutes on your phone or you run out on data on your phone and you're not able to use the phone, you buy. Why is it that we cannot afford our own company, a company that belongs to all of us? The same, respect.
How many of these state agencies or MMDAs are on prepaid meters?
Quite a number of them are. I'll get you the percentage figures. But I know, but let's not be so quick, because depending on the gadgets and equipment you use, not all prepaid meters are not sophisticated to carry beyond a certain load. That is why those who are on postpaid meters are on what we call the AMR. So we are able to read the meters remotely.
You see, I asked this because in 2010, and I know you know this, that the late John Evans Mills issued a directive that all MMDAs should be put on prepaid meters because of the loss of revenue to ECG. Some of them leave their air conditions on overnight. They show up the next morning because the room is chilled, and they go in and all that.
You see,
so what's the difficulty?
You see, in truth, I have just told you that this time around, it's not about government or state agencies anymore. They have done their part, and they are contributing. They are paying, and they have been paying. We are talking about 5.7 billion. That has less than 10% relating to government agencies. The rest out there is the good people of Ghana, industry Ghana, private individuals in their homes. That is the conversation now. Government or state agencies have done their best to reduce their exposure. Out of 5.7 billion, less than 10% is state. And the processes have been put in place to recoup those monies. They have already paid. If you have never received a bill before, that's a fundamental problem. And yet, even with that, you should be paying something because you should be able to come to the office to regularize.
Well, but the instances where, before you came in, we got some people sending us messages that they know the challenge. They've gone to some of your offices countless times asking that they should be giving meters. And
they're asking to be given what, prepaid meters?
Yes.
But we don't have prepaid meters in stock. I'm not going to sit here and pontificate and say and paint you a good picture. ECG hasn't bought meters for a while now. But as I'm speaking to you now, bills have gone out. Everybody should have their bill by now. Now the question is, why haven't you paid?
So you see, the challenge is that whilst you're doing what is right, we don't also want to appear to be punishing people for your inefficiencies, okay? Because you assume that because I received 500 cedis, I should be paying 500 cedis until such a time when you come and rectify the problem. Whereas if you were actually able to rectify your problem immediately, I would know my level of consumption so that I'm able to control. Then if I'm not getting your bill and I buy appliances.
My brother, it is now time. Don't drop I told you, we are partly to be blamed, yes. But what are you doing as a responsible citizen of the Republic of Ghana, drawing electricity from what? ECG. I'm telling you, you knowing your consumption. So 500 cedis, you don't want to pay your last bill of 500 cedis. But if you know your bill of 1,005 is what will be economical for you to pay. But guess what? If you had repaid that 500, that your 1,005 is now what? 1,000. When the power is on, nobody complains. The moment it goes off, everybody remembers ECG. And then there's a problem. But when it comes to our civic duty to pay, we look for the tiniest reasons here and there to justify why we haven't paid. Let's stop it. Look, as I've been saying on different platforms, let's not give excuses to this because there's no excuse. again, let's not politicize the power sector. An electricity bill or debt doesn't have party color. At the end of the day, it is a debt that has to be settled. How do we settle it? The power we are buying, we buy in dollars and sell in cedis. We are already operating from a loss. So the only way we can justify is to make sure that our collections are better.
There's a message from one of our viewers. Kwame says, good evening. I have been visiting this ECG vendor, not just one, not two, but three in my area. It specifically mentions Nungwa, and they say their network is down for days. How then do I live without power, without also looking at other alternatives of getting power to survive?
When was the last time he visited the ECG office? If
This
he's
person
talking
says
about
he's
this
been
a week
going there
ago,
for
days. My brother, before we started this exercise, the ECG network has been up. Now we don't run a shop where we are not visible to what is going on. ECG is now digitalized from end to end. There's a dashboard in my office showing me transactions in real time, updating us what is happening in every district office, every regional office, and exactly what is going to our bank. So when the ECG network is down, we know we have a network operations center. We have the requisite team in place. So some of these things, yes, there are glitches. They do happen. There are times we keep quiet and accept it for what is worth. But there are times that some of the problems are internet related. They have nothing to do with us. They have to do with the service provider. But we suffer the brunt of it. But we take it in our stride and we move on.
We got a message from the vendors as well. I know this is something that you may have come across at a point. It says the threshold for ECG vendors has been increased to 25,000 cedis.
20,000, not
Well,
25.
It says 20,000. Well, this is so most of these vendors can't afford it, hence we've had to close our shops. And in fact, yes. So there's a statement. That statement that was issued, signed by you. We have just got a copy of it, indicating that is indeed 20,000 increase.
Yes,
this is the statement.
it's correct.
What led to this?
When you call yourself a third-party vendor, you are supposed to be what? A bulk purchaser. Do you understand? Some individuals' consumption alone is 5,000 cedis. If you purchase 5,000, are you a bulk purchaser? Now, the very first message spoke about the ECG network. Sometimes it's not down. It is just too busy to accommodate more people. He wakes up in the morning at 6 a.m., he's buying 5,000. At 8 a.m., he's buying another 5,000. 10, 5,000. 12, 5,000. 2, 5,000. 4, 5,000. 6, 5,000. 8, 5,000. In a day, he has hit the ECG network how many times? More than 8 times. Then ECG itself, wanting to do something in the system, doesn't have opportunity to work in its own system. So we sat back and decided to take some decisions so that other people who have to work on the ECG network can have access to work. So what did we do? We decided that let's increase this threshold for the purchase. Yes, we must agree that there are a few people that may not be able to purchase the 20,000. But the truth of the matter is this. In as much as you can't purchase the 20,000, we also told the Vendors Association when they came to my office for a meeting that conversations are far advanced for a super vendor situation where somebody carries that problem of somebody who wants to buy. So somebody buys at bulk and deals with those who want to buy at that limited amount. The conversations are far advanced. We told them as soon as it is done, it will be deployed and they can all benefit from it.
So I think the
we are not
fundamental
taking anybody
concern-
out of business.
I see. That's the concern, that because they were not giving enough time of notice.
When was the letter signed?
And then the data, he said February 2023.
Yes, and then when did it take effect?
When did it take effect?
It was supposed to take effect 1st March.
1st March.
On the 1st of March, they came, before the 1st of March, they came for a meeting.
So you had a meeting with the vendors?
Yes, association. I didn't start the process on the 1st of March. The process was started a week after because they said they needed time to put themselves together. After 1 week, we kicked it into motion. We have been working with them for years. It's a symbiotic relationship. So we understand their plight. We won't do anything to jeopardize their livelihood. But they should also understand that the company is at a as at the point where it needs to survive and has to do certain things to survive. We will accommodate them. They should just give us some time to fix that portion of the super vendor, and they can all come back into the system. But they would not be responsible to us, but to someone else on a different network.
So what, you're going to sublet
Of course.
it to someone?
Just like the telcos
Is it
do.
someone else? Is it like a private partner or a person?
So those parameters haven't been set yet, but after it's done, it will definitely have to be a company. And whichever company is buying has to have certain guarantees. It cannot just be a guarantee just because maybe your pastor is guaranteeing for you, then we give you 1 million Ghana cedis worth of power. No. It has to be business-minded and business-conscious. It has to be backed by a bank guarantee. All of those things have to be spelled out properly before it's rolled out. So we just need time to flesh it out, and we will implement. It's the same third-party vendors are individuals.
So what's the challenge of ECG still handling this
Our
part of the
network-
business that you intend to sublet to a private
Our
person?
network cannot carry it. And then now, we keep talking about private sector participation. We have the private sector participation at the lower level. If ECG can wake up this morning and somebody will prepay the entire quota purchase of prepaid at, let's say, 50 million Ghana cedis in a day, and the company can concentrate on bettering its network and allow for somebody to sell, are you saying it's not a good business opportunity?
So the private sector player, if you decide, who comes in, will be able to contain the load, and the ECG system
He has to
cannot
build the
contain-
network, yeah.
ECG system cannot contain that.
He has to build the network for it. So you see, because we cannot just make such a decision straight off the bat, we are saying, purchase the 20,000 for now. Let ECG staff also be able to use the network. Let other ECG customers who have to come in postpaid, who have to come in on the app also have a better experience. And give us time to think through all of these things, fix the problem, and then we see how we can play it out. You are thinking about all of these expansions. They all cost money. It brings us back to square one. We are owed, 5.7 billion? The company is owed 5.7 billion. If you limit the entire conversation to quota being 20,000, or maybe a third-party person coming in, you are doing this company a great disservice. If somebody is owing the company 5.7 billion and we are collecting right, how much do you think this company should be collecting monthly? Meanwhile, the company is collecting around 400 to 500 million. Meanwhile, it's a company that should be collecting in excess of $1 billion. How do you collect that billion? In most parts of the world, private sector participation, but you have to think through it very well. So we are not going to let anybody rush us to take a decision. Yes, we know it's tough times. Yes, we know it's difficult. But for now, they should allow for what is happening to help us stabilize the network. We will fix the problem.
So you take their concerns into consideration?
Yes, we don't want to get rid of them. They are people we grew up with. We cannot get rid of them like that.
Okay, so aside this, you have...
Do you know they are paid by commission? So it's not free?
Oh, that's the statement we see on the screen there.
Yeah.
Aside from this vendor situation, you still have technical losses or the technical challenges that you deal with as a company that leads to these technical losses. In fact, the last time I checked, the total technical losses as a percentage of your revenue, that's total, is about 30%.
Okay.
Correct?
Correct.
How do you intend to deal with this so that while you are looking at that source of revenue, you're also addressing these technical issues?
We need money. How do you solve technical problems?
The obsolete
Of course, you have to replace them.
and cables.
Where would you get the money to replace them? Am I to go to the Ministry of Finance? Am I to go to the World Bank? We have to replace them. You are owed 5.7 billion and you are not collecting, but there's this huge expectation on you as to the quality of service you have to deliver. It cannot be like that anymore. We cannot be doing the same old things and expecting a different result. The onus is on us to do the right thing. It's very easy to point a hand at ECG and point out ECG's flaws. But what about us? What about those of us who've consumed and who are not paying? What do we do? Pay what is due ECG, and then when you take them to the cleaners, you have a justification. Because with $500 million US, after the independent power producers are paid, of course we can take up some very good capital, because there are There are projects that intensification projects that we have to do to give you a better service delivery. For example, Ghana has a lot of generation capacity now. We are actually now selling excess power to Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, and Togo. So what you experience in your area is not a problem of generation, but more so a problem of overload on transformers.
Finally, let's round up this before we go. Another issue is a power theft, which apart from the technical issues. Now, the Chief Justice has set up a utility court.
Yeah.
Right? So, but do you have enough data on people who are stealing power so as to utilize this utility court that has been set up?
What we have now, yes, what we have now would be sent there. But now, the next thing is this. We are about to meter all distribution transformers.
Distribution transformers?
Yes.
You meter them?
When we meter them, we can now compare your reading in your home to what is on the distribution transformer. That is when we will know who or which homes are stealing from the grid. And let's not forget, it's power theft. It's stealing, and you'll be charged with the offense of stealing. So we need to start stopping those things and correcting them as quickly as possible. Some people, when they were about to build their home, they envisaged this theft already, so they built the bypass in the wall. We need to start being honest.
They built the bypass in the wall?
Yes.
To steal power?
Because he knows that at the end of the day, ECG's mandate ends at the meter, not behind the box. But the only way ECG can come into your house and perform an audit is when we know that you are stealing. So when we meter the distribution transformer and we compare your meter reading to the distribution transformer, the number of homes, and it doesn't add up, we will visit each home. And then that is where the whole conversation of power theft will be escalated.
There was a final question, and this is going to be one final one before we go. How many prepaid meters are in the system?
We should
How
have
many types?
Almost different types. I would have to check, but I know in totality, all metering types that ECG has from postpaid to prepaid has almost about 20 or 21 different types.
21 different types of prepaid meters.
Not prepaid, I said
Meters.
both postpaid and prepaid.
Postpaid
combined.
and prepaid
Yeah.
Combined. How many of them are prepaid?
I would say about roughly about 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Yeah.
There was a time when some meters were giving what they call political meters or whatever.
Those are the SHEP meters. Those were for the rural electrification meters, yeah.
Do you have them captured in your system?
Not all of them. Some are, others are not. But with this exercise that we are embarking on, we are set to capture all of these things when we see them. Some time back, we did a moratorium where we asked for people to come forward. We saw a huge number, which led us to start an exercise in the Kwabenya district where we were tagging all our customers with a unique QR code. That we are done with Kwabenya. We've moved to Adenta. We are training staff in Kumasi to roll it out better. So we have a formidable way of tagging all our customers and knowing our true customer numbers. We will ask the general populace and our cherished customers to assist us to finish with this tagging properly.
What's the short code again, finally?
Star 226 hash.
Star 266 hash.
No. Star
2226
hash.
Samuel Jubik Mahama, thank you for coming. If we see an ECG person at our doors, it's because you see that happening there. Well, those are the debtors, and we've been running through over the period, and we'll keep updating it. And it's just the beginning of the exercise, and we update our listeners as it goes on. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight, and to Samuel Jubik Mahama on the ECG board. The number of you have sent us messages. There's going to be another time when we'll get all your messages put together and get the responses from them. I appreciate your company as always. Join us same time tomorrow on Ghana Tonight. I am Alfred Konse. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by
Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage, simply superior.